everybody. Welcome in on a smoking hot Friday in July. But it's a great one because we have former Wolverine Jerry Diorio ready to go.
Great to be a Michigan Wolverine, Denny.
Well, it's a great time to talk Michigan, and that's great. You know, you played at Michigan, and we're going to talk about coaches and everything surrounding Michigan. Every day's great. Jerry, if you looked on the Michigan football account online today, they took a picture inside the stadium on that big screen on the other side. It's the I think, you know, I'll just speak for you. It's the best stadium in the country.
Absolutely.
In college football, I think everyone agrees with that. 50 days is
unless you haven't been there.
Yeah, well, even if you haven't been there, you've heard like, wow, man, 110,000, the largest place. How do they say it, Jerry? At one point, this is the
most watched game. What is it?
That's close.
Of a live audience in the country today, or something like that. Isn't that what they say, Denny?
Thank you for being part of the largest crowd. Yeah, there's something like that. It's
watching college football at a stadium today, or something like that.
Don't trash the big house. All that kind of stuff. It's great.
Hey, let me ask you a question real quick, Denny.
Okay, go ahead.
Let me test your memory a little bit. Do you remember the first time you were in the big house and what your experience was?
Yeah, I do, Jerry. I went down there, and a friend of mine and me got dropped off. I was 15 years old, so it was 1986. Michigan was playing Iowa, and we sat right next to the student section. I was a little intimidated. You know, I was thinking, you know, you're right around 15 years old. You know, college kids, you're going to intimidate you a little bit. But man, it was it lived up to all the expectations. It was great. Everything that was going on in the stadium with the keys, and they were standing up the whole time. And then Mike Gillette hit a 34-yard game-winning field goal right at the end. And then the whole student section rushed onto the field, and you know, my friend and I were just like, whatever. So we went behind them, and we ended up, you know, on the field. So it was pretty cool. Awesome. You didn't have to jump down back then. It was a lot easier. It's just kind of like jumping a small fence, you know, and you're on.
Right. Now, oh yeah, absolutely, Denny. Yeah, absolutely. I remember that field was only what that wall was only like 4 feet on top of the field.
Well, you look at some of those pictures. It's down there at one point. I don't know. In some time of the 70s, it looked like maybe it was just 2 feet.
I remember Kenny Gear in a scrimmage my freshman year. Went up for a pass, caught it, ran, and he kind of went like this. His midsection caught the wall, and he bent over, and it was a serious injury, and that's what I remember when I was there. That wall was only like 3 or 4 feet high, and you could run into it, no question.
Oh, Jerry, that brings back a terrible memory. I can recall being around 14 years old, running full go, looking at the football, concentrating on the ball, but hitting a picnic table. Same thing. Bent over, smacked myself in the face. I don't remember if I had to go to the hospital or not. I do remember walking in. My dad was like, wow, what happened? I told him. He's like, that's pretty it was pretty lame, you know. He was thinking maybe there was some kind of fight or something, but no, that was it. So yeah, 50 days and it'll be happening. So we're getting close enough now where you can I don't know, do you smell it or do you taste it, Jerry Moore?
Right now, Denny, I'm looking to get in as a player. I'm looking to get in the best shape as I possibly can, but more importantly than that, even, is to stay healthy through my workouts in the summertime. So that's what my focus is on. I always got Ohio State in the back of my mind. We used to have Notre Dame as our number 2 game, which was the one that you were really thinking about as the season progressed. And so I can relate to what these guys are looking at. They're looking at Texas. That would be kind of like the Notre Dames of when we played. And they're focused on it. They're going down the stretch. They're in the back stretch right now. They're down the hill.
I thought you'd warn them not to look too far ahead because they got a tough Fresno State team in 50 days before they get to Texas. Jerry, how about you tell us your first memory of the Big House? Was it your first recruiting trip, or had you been to a game prior to that?
You know, Denny, I appreciate the question. It was Ohio. It was Michigan playing Ohio in 1979, last game of the season, and I was up for a recruiting trip. And never been to Michigan, never been to Ann Arbor, never seen the Big House. Always heard stories about it. Great recruiting trip. That's where I was introduced to Mike Gittleson. And I mean, you talk about a salesman and an entertainer. My God, Mike he can put on a show. And just stole the hearts of myself, my mom, my sister. And then we go to the game. And we're walking up to the stadium. And I'm like, that stadium doesn't look all that big.
Right.
I mean, it's hardly out of the ground. And then you walk in and you just, it almost looks like it goes on forever. Not a bad seat in the house, but it just looked like, man, those guys are way, way down there in the ground. So it was a very enlightening experience for me. Really enjoyed it. And to be honest with you, Denny, that was the day I said to myself, I've got to be a part of this rivalry. One way or the other, on one team or the other, I've got to be a part of this rivalry.
That's jumping right in, going to a Michigan-Ohio State game. Unfortunately, they lost that game, Jerry, and the 79 game. But
I told Anthony Carter the next year, because Anthony, if you remember correctly, Anthony had a great game that year against Ohio in that game. We lost that game by a blocked punt and a missed field goal, if I remember correctly. And we're going into Ohio State in Columbus the next year. And Anthony and I were good friends, and I went over to Anthony. I said, man, that'd be a nice performance to do just like you did last year, only turning the L to a W. And sure enough, he had a great game. We ended up winning the game in Columbus, going to the Rose Bowl in Pasadena, and bringing Bo's first Rose Bowl victory home. Great experience.
Yeah, that's one of the great wins in Michigan football history. This team that won last year, they had a lot of great victories last year, and they won them all. Last night, they were at the ESPYs. We have a number of the players pictured, along with head coach Sherrone Moore. And, I see Mason Graham. I see Blake Corum there, Will Johnson. I get my glasses out real close. Mason Graham in there. I was wondering who this offensive lineman is. That's Ward Manuel, though, back there. I was like, hey, he looks a little older, but no, there he is. Loveland right in there as well. Good time had by all. The red carpet almost didn't fit Michigan up there in front of the ESPYs. But, that's a good time being nominated for all the awards and being able to go to the banquet. And, you've a lot of dignitaries there. You walk around there. I mean, I was looking myself at some of the pictures. It's really something to see all the people that head out there for the ESPY. So that's a cool time.
No pun intended, but to the victors go the spoils, Denny. And these guys deserved every accolade that they got this year, and are going to keep getting. Remember, these guys, they're kind of heroes in Michigan football history and in the annals of Michigan football. These guys are heroes, and they got a home in Ann Arbor for the rest of their life. And they're going to be remembered as, if not the greatest accomplishment in college football, if not that, one of the top five. And these guys are heroes now, and their life is changed. They're gonna benefit tremendously, not only psychologically, but also in their pocketbooks and in their lives. They're going to benefit tremendously by their accomplishment, and God bless them. Good for them.
Yeah, good for them. I always looked at it like all you guys, you play football at Michigan, like that's it for the rest of your life. People will want to hear about the times that you had and the seasons that you were there and everything else. But when you go and win a championship, that's different. I know Big Ten championship, of course, you love that, but a national championship. These guys canonized, for the rest of their lives. You're right about that. So we'll get to, Sherrone Moore pictured with his shades on and jacket. He started as offensive line coach, moved to offensive coordinator to head coach. I was thinking, boy, if we just had anybody that, had that kind of experience, that was an offensive lineman, coached offensive line, OC, the head coach, we've got one on the show today. So we'll talk about that transition and how it was, and what, if anything, Jerry might be able to impart some wisdom from his days on climbing the ladder in the coaching ranks. Jerry has put 3 keys for July for Michigan. I put 3 keys for the upcoming season, but we'll start where we like starting all the time, and that's recruiting. Jerry in Michigan. I don't know if the fans are holding their breath or not. They've got 2 wide receivers that are making decisions tomorrow. One, Philip Wright, the speedster out of Louisiana. Michigan already has a wide receiver from Louisiana and Jacob Washington. I don't know. These guys could be friends. Something could be going on there, but seems like there are very positive vibes about Wright making the correct choice tomorrow. Meanwhile, Taz, when you look at his Twitter profile, the S in Williams is a $sign. I always thought that was a bad harbinger myself looking at that, even though I wanted to see him come to Ann Arbor. But the wide receiver from Texas, I think it would be a big surprise if he ends up picking Michigan as we sit here 24 hours out.
So does he have, do we know that for a fact, Danny, that the S on his name is a $sign?
Well, I said that. It's been a while since I looked. I'd have to actually look and see. I remember the first time that I saw him, like, because Michigan's been interested in him and all of that. And so, and then I looked at his profile and I'm like, Michigan's not getting this guy. I mean, that has a $sign in his, let me see exactly. Yep. Yeah, that's it. You're right.
I would probably agree with you, Denny.
I'm gonna put it up on the picture or on the screen now that I've been talking about it. Taz.
Yeah.
That was never. Michigan was never getting. He's telling you right there. He's about the Benjamins. There's nothing wrong with it.
Exactly, Denny. That's what I got right away. First thing I thought of when you said that, this guy's after the money.
Right. There's still another wide receiver. This is a good one, Marsh. And, there's a Michigan feels good. I don't know. I don't feel very good about wide receivers in Michigan just because the amount of the frequency which Michigan runs the ball. I don't think that, that it doesn't. I didn't think it would appeal to the very top wide receivers in high school. And yet, they've got a commitment. Here's another one that they're in on that people feel good about it. So we don't know. And then I do feel good about Babaloa. N.O.B., the linebacker, Michigan, he's got Michigan in his 5, which is great. But the other 4, that's going to be a tough pull. But that's where we're at right now. So that's how it's looking.
Yeah, going to be an exciting couple of days here, Denny. We're going to find out some things, and hopefully we're going to pull some of these guys into Michigan. You're right. Anthony Carter was the big boy of the time, and we were lucky to get him. And I remember he wasn't real happy at Michigan at first, and he was so important. Bo did everything in his power to keep him, and the rest is history, as they say. And so you're right. Michigan has had a history of not getting top caliber receivers. However, throughout their career, guys like Braylon Edwards, what was the guy's name? Number one, McMurtry. I mean, we've had tremendous receivers all throughout the history of Michigan football, and I think a lot of it has to do with our ability to run the ball, which puts our receivers in very favorable matchups where we can throw to them a little bit easier.
Michigan's still doing pretty good with their latest surge. It has them with 15 commitments, and they're sitting there at number 14. Jerry, we're going to get to NIL and how it plays out and recruiting and everything else coming up. in a moment. But first, I wanted to tell everyone that you want to know about the recruits and everything that's going on and how it's shaken out and how it's going to look. You do that by getting the latest news by joining the Maize and Blue Review. And you can do that today by going to michigan.rivals.com. We'd love to see you over there. A friendly community. They're the real ones. It would be great to see you over there. You like talking Michigan all day, all night. You can do that. Now, before I ask you about Sherrone Moore moving up the ladder, you were telling me that you watched or listened to the Dan Patrick show. And then I saw this today, a tweet from Adam Schefter, who said Oklahoma is going to work with a former Eagles executive and a consulting firm to advise them on their impending transition to what he calls a salary cap era of college athletics. Schefter says those around the sport consider it to be a progressive move to partner with someone who has been a highly respected executive in the NFL and one of the Eagles, Howie Roseman's closest advisors. Yeah, but Michigan has, they don't call it a salary cap, but they have people in position like that as well. So this isn't the first, but it's one of those kind of a big name with the Eagles and a salary. They're calling it a salary cap, but Michigan has somebody in this kind of position. I think they call it a general manager, I think is what they're calling him.
Danny, everybody's going to have this. I mean, everybody in the country is going to have this department, just like the scouting department. Everybody had to have it because it was legal. You're able to do it. Everybody is going to have this this management team that's going to look at the finances because you're going to have it now. The salary cap, that's based on revenue sharing. They're not going to be able to do much in the NIL. They're looking at how do we divvy up our money most productively and stay within the salary cap. And what I heard from what I heard on the Dan Patrick show the other day, which was really kind of poignant, in my opinion, he's talking about where is the money going to go? Well, if you look at the past 5, maybe 10 years, the teams with the best offensive lines and the best defensive lines win. Period. End of story. Who were the teams he mentioned? Georgia, Michigan, Alabama, Washington won the award last year. Okay, so that's where I think you're going to start to see movement for this money. You're going to have to concentrate now on that offensive line, on that defensive line, because when you look at it, the bottom line is those teams that dominate up front win and win big. And that's what, he mentioned. This is scary to me. This is scary. Georgia might average 6'7", 340 across the line. I've never heard that. I've never heard that before. It's incredible. But that's where Georgia's looking. And I think most teams that are going to be successful are going to be concentrating heavily on the offensive line, on the defensive line, and starting our team with a good foundation.
Yeah, Jerry, as we sit here right now, it's interesting that Schefter writes with such confidence here that there's an impending transition to a salary cap era. You could pay the players right now, but there's no salary cap. Mm-mm. Ohio State has no salary cap.
No.
They're paying everyone. Hey, look, they've got the greatest team that you can actually go out there. They're getting every 5-star. They are just stacking up their team. They did the same thing at the transfer portal. They just backed up the Brinks truck on everyone. So there's no, when you talk about having to have some kind of, salary cap advisor, it's like baseball. The Ohio State's like the Yankees. Now the Yankees haven't won anything for a long time, but they'll pay Aaron Judge $370 million. They're going to pay their next free agent $400 million next year. They have to. that's the way it goes. They're just going to keep bringing in those big names. That doesn't mean they're going to win anything. So it's just interesting that Schefter's already acting like that this, you're going to have to collectively bargain. And then if you did have a salary cap, that's a whole different kind of focus, whatever it would be. Say you would have 25 million, it would be revenue sharing. Maybe they will get it going next week. That could, in some ways, you feel like that's going to help Michigan, because that now they can take their money and they will be able to get some of those 5 stars. Then it comes down to, how you're divvying up your money. It's pretty easy if you're Ohio State and said, well, we'll just pay everybody. We'll just outspend everyone. They're not going to be able to do that. In theory, this should close the gap and bring some parity if they come up with a salary cap.
Denny, they're going to come up with a salary cap. They're going to come up with collective bargaining, and they're going to come up with it because of the revenue sharing. This case has been settled. Teams are going to they're going to be paying their players, whether people like it or not. This has been settled, and we're moving on. The NIL is advertising dollars. Michigan can drop their truck off and dump the money in there too, as well. So, yeah. I mean, there is no cap on the NIL. The NIL is, and I think it's going to continue to be wild, wild west for a while, anyways. The revenue sharing is where they can cap it, and that's the money that the schools are going to get for TV, for the attendance, and all that money that goes into the program. Now, where they're going to draw that line at, I don't know. But remember, Texas A&M, if I'm not mistaken, a couple years ago, backed their Wells Fargo trucks back up into the stadium and dumped a ton of cash. And 2 years later, Jimbo Fisher's looking for a job. So just because the money dumps doesn't mean necessarily that you put the money in the right place.
Right.
And so, he had a great defense line. We really don't know what happened with Texas A&M. Maybe he gave it to too early, too many freshmen, and they weren't being as productive as they needed to be as in their junior, senior year. So, that's what that's where the rubber's going to really meet the road, Denny.
Yeah.
The wealth or the wisdom in spending the money. Where do you spend your money? Those are the guys. Those are the people that are going to do well in this future of college football. The people that can spend their money wisely and get the most bang for their buck, those are the people that are going to do well in college football in the next few years, in my opinion.
Well, yeah, like if it was just about the amount of money that you spent, then, Texas A&M and Miami, they would be winning college football championships, just like the Yankees and the Dodgers would win it every year because there's no cap. But there's a lot of things that come up when, you think about a cap. And it is at least interesting to think about, and Antoine is right at it, and it's good to see Antoine. It's been a long time. We worry. I think Antoine, he takes his vacation in June. He celebrates Michigan's national championship. I think he's back to work now that there's 50 days to go, because he's ready to go. But Antoine says Michigan should spend their money first and foremost with trench players. You always start with the foundation first. And Jerry, I put up, it's the NFL, but their average franchise tag number this year that they are going to, pay these certain positions, and no surprise, quarterback, $38 million. That's going to be the highest one. But what Antoine says is the trenches, offensive line, $21 million. If you look over on the defensive line, 21, 22 million for some interior offensive defensive linemen. It's about the same for the guys in the trenches, and then you start looking towards the edge. Now, this is the NFL. It's different than college, but there is a lot of similarity. When you look at these numbers and you think about what Antoine had to say about allocating your money, how are you going about it?
Denny, correct me if I'm wrong. Wasn't there a study done where the second highest player paid on each team was the left tackle?
Well, I don't know about a study. There's a lot of people that look at the breakdown. It was like that a few years ago, but I think wide receiver has picked it up. And I would bet that there's a lot of left tackles. If we looked at the number, it would be all quarterbacks. Who is the highest paid non-quarterback off the top of my head, I'm not sure. I would think like Myles Garrett or TJ Watt, as edge defenders. I would think, we've been looking at the wide receiver market, but yeah, I mean, the left tackle, those guys are definitely, they're going to get paid that way. But man, it's been the year of the wide receiver. We've seen the amount of money that these guys have been banking,
Here's what I'm saying, Denny. When you look at that quarterback position, how many times have we seen quarterbacks picked first, top 5, and sent to teams that are not ready for that type of quarterback? Joey Harrington at Detroit. What was Joey Harrington's Achilles heel? He had really very little to go around him. And so that will end the quarterback's career faster than anything. That initial failure, those initial failures, if they continue to mount and mount and mount, that quarterback is going to lose the confidence, is not going to be able to recoup and rebuild himself. I've always thought that the way, if I'm a general manager, what do I want to do? How do I want to build my team? Like Antoine said, I want my offensive line to be able to protect my quarterback. I want my running game to be able to give my quarterback an opportunity to throw the ball into some open spaces because people have to come up and support the run. So if I'm a general manager, I'm looking to go line, D-line, cornerback, and then start looking at quarterbacks. I want my team built before I start putting big bucks into the quarterback.
Yeah, I think you can make that argument at Michigan because it might not be as important as most other schools because they're so dependent on the run. And if I say, no, I'm going to spend the majority of my money at quarterback, that doesn't mean I like to neglect the, either side of the ball. I think the trenches, but I'm going to spend, if I am, in this way, if you look at the way Michigan's been doing it, it's clear that they're not getting the 5 stars because there's a certain amount of money, whatever that is. If it's $1 million, Michigan's not paying that. But when you get to the next cut, the 4 stars and whatever they're looking at, maybe, the 5 stars are getting 7 figures and the 4 stars are getting 6. Michigan has focused in, let's go and get quality 4 stars. And they have just been cashing in. You could tell their process and how it's been working. But if I was in there and had the ear of the group about, allocating the money, I would say they should splurge. If they are going to try to get some 5 stars, I think it should be the quarterback position should be number 1 there. But yeah, you want to make a case, Jerry, that it should be the left tackle, or there's an edge kid out of Texas, that's going to be 1, 2, 3, quarterback and edge, left tackle, and however you're going to do it. So interesting if it does come down to that, if they end up allocating money, if there is some kind of salary cap.
I'm a general manager. I'm looking to protect my quarterback as best I can.
Former offensive lineman Jerry Diorio on the show. Now, Jerry, you played offensive line at Michigan, and then you started coaching in high school. What was give me your first couple jobs? Did you coach the offensive line when you were in high school? How did it work?
Yeah, I was coaching offensive line, coaching defensive line, just going, getting introduced to the position, coaching positions, kind of like having your own room. This is my group of kids. These are the guys I work with. And I can tell you that most of the time you're looking at coaches that played the position that they're coaching. And so you want to try, in my opinion, I'm thinking college head coaches, they want to try to keep their new young coaches as comfortable as possible and put them in a position that they're familiar with, a position that they've played in the past. And that's what I'm doing. So as a head coach, so, you come out, you're a young coach, you're probably going to coach that position that you played. I played offensive line, and I can tell you, from the time I jumped into coaching until basically the day I left, I always tried to have my fingertips on the offensive line somehow, some way. I felt like it was the rock, the foundation. And if you can't do anything on the offensive line, um, it's hard to be successful. And so I always wanted my fingerprints on the offensive line. I always wanted my offensive line to be the smartest. They had to know the blocking schemes. I wanted my offensive line to know what the tight end was doing, what the fullback was doing. That way it all made sense to them what they were doing and how it coordinated with their position. And so that movement in a position coach, I was an offensive lineman. I coached the offensive line. Moving into an offensive coordinator position, I'm an offensive lineman. I'm going to have my hands, my fingerprints on what we're doing up front. There's no question about it. That's what a coordinator does. And as an offensive lineman, I feel confident in myself to put our guys in the right position. Okay. So even as a coordinator, I had my hands and fingers on the offensive line, had offensive line coaches. And I will tell you, I was more hard on my offensive line coaches than anybody else because I played it, I coached it, and I realized, or I felt like I realized, the importance of the offensive line. And so I always try to have my toughest coaches, my smartest coaches, my most dedicated coaches up front on the offensive line as a coordinator and as a head coach. And when I progressed into the head coach, my hands were right back on the offensive line. Still working the offensive line. Maybe not as much as I was before. But I'm going to tell you right now, when I turn that film on, the first thing I'm looking at is the offensive line.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's something you played, you coached, and then you're the head coach. And even though you have to oversee everything, you're still in a practice. You still have some wisdom to impart because that was your position. This is not an argument. This used to be an off-season argument that lasted that you could talk about every day, and that was whether Michigan should run the ball more or throw the ball more. And Harbaugh just smashed it because now we know that the Michigan's a running team, and smash is what Sherrone Moore. That's the one thing that he is known for right now. And sometimes you get, Lloyd Carr actually was I think a quarterback when he played, but he was very like, we're gonna run the ball and because that's what he believed in. And Harbaugh, you would think because he was a quarterback, you'd say, oh, Harbaugh's going to be really airing it out and everything. No. Harbaugh was about, winning up front. And now Sherrone Moore, he is an offensive lineman, but he's just continued on. If he was a coach somewhere else, you'd say, oh, he's just going to run the ball because he's an old offensive line coach. But you do get pegged a little bit that way, that you're just going to be a running team if you're a head coach, Jerry.
Sometimes, Denny, it's a good thing to know who you are, right?
Yeah.
It's a good thing not to fool yourself, not to trick yourself all the time. You know who you are. Why am I hiding it? I'm going to do this because we do it well. It helps us win ball games. Okay. And it puts us in a favorable position. So I have no problem. I'm gonna wear it on my shoulder. This is what we do. Why? Because it tends to win. That's it. When you look at who wins, you have to run the ball and you have to stop the run. At the end of the day, those are the two things and don't turn the ball over. And remember old Woody's saying, 3 things happen on a pass and 2 of them are bad. So
I guess he took it from Woody, right?
Huh?
I thought Bo said that, but he must have just taken it from Woody.
I believe it was Woody that said that. Okay. I believe it was Woody.
You're probably
but and maybe this has been ingrained into me all my life. I've always been on a team that ran the ball and knew how to run the ball, put our kids in great position blocking and running the ball. And maybe that's just me, but that was my emphasis, and I've always felt strongly about it. A running game is good for your team.
Sherrone Moore's already been asked about, the biggest difference of being the head coach and, how different it is from, and he said, look, yeah, he can't spend the amount of time that he could coaching an offensive lineman. He can't, he's not sitting around drawing up as many plays because now he's overseeing everything. He's the CEO. He's doing interviews every other day. And it's a totally different thing. But, when you're the head coach, coordinator, they're all steps up. But then when you're the head coach, man, you have so many things that going on. Jerry, you did it at high school. I mean, it's talk about what you think Sherrone Moore and where he will have, and he did get a little taste of it on game day, which, I think it's going to be good for him. But the places that you think it'll be easier and maybe some spots where it'll be more difficult when you make that transition now as a head coach from offensive coordinator and then position coach.
Sherrone's got to put on this new hat, and it's called, how do I want to say this? Administrative benevolence. Would that be a good word there, Denny?
Administrative benevolence.
Kind of a political kind of thing. Sherrone's got to now become a little bit more political. A handshaker, a baby kisser. Those are the things he's got to get used to now. Before it was all football. What do I have to do on the offensive line? How are we going to run the ball? How are we going to design our offense? Now, all of a sudden, Sherrone's got to do the administrative work that may or may not be very good for him. Okay, we don't know. Okay, but now he's got to be that politician out there, the face of the team, and he's got to balance that with that football knowledge and that reasoning that we got him as the head football coach. He's got to do that balancing act between, raising money for his NIL, getting out there in front of the audience, the fans at Michigan, dealing with the administration, the athletic director, the board of regents, the president. So he's got to start dealing with all this. This is something now that's new on his plate that he hasn't seen or it wasn't truly experienced with before. Now that he's the big guy that everybody comes to and talks to first, the press and everybody else.
Yeah, and you can have a GM, you can have a bean counter, you can have a capologist, you can have all these, but in the end, the buck stops with Sherrone. I mean, that's the thing now that he'll get. I thought one of the big there's probably every single thing is going to be different, but just having that experience. I know some people have gone overboard with the experience of him coaching those games last year, and then some people way underplay it. But I think it's you take it at with face value. But I was just watching the Rose Bowl the other day, and I see Sherrone concentrating, talking to JJ McCarthy. They had a little, break in the play. He's got his hands on the quarterback's shoulder and he's talking about the next play. And you can see Harbaugh on the same thing. He's with the coaches and he's the refs, and he's dialed in on whatever the play is. And he's all about what's going on the field. Just to that focus. And I think the part of the pressure, you're going to have that when it's your first time. And I think we saw the release after when Sherrone beat Penn State. I mean, that was such on its face, a real a pressure cooker, Jerry. I mean, they didn't know. He didn't know.
Deservedly so.
90 minutes before the game, he didn't know he was going to be the head coach. And then Harbaugh, hey, you guys are undefeated. Now you're playing the meat of your schedule. I'm staying here at the hotel. Go get him, guys. That had to be something else for Sherrone Moore.
Well, I agree with Scott right here. He's already made tough decisions on letting Denard go and the old defensive lineman go. But Sherrone has had that experience, that tough water experience. He's had to go through 6 games where a head coach was suspended for whatever reason, valid or not. So Sherrone had to deal with that administrative work. And that's one of the reasons I had no problem with Sherrone Moore being the head football coach. He's already proven that he can handle and balance a little bit of this this tug of war between head coach and everybody else in the program. And I think he's already shown that he can do this. He can handle the pressure of meeting with Ono and the AD and the regents. He's already had that pressure on him, and I think that's why he's made some great decisions so far this year.
I like it. If you missed the recruiting off the bat. You can always go back and check that out here at the end. We know that Moose is here now, and he's as big on recruiting as anyone. So maybe he'll have some thoughts on what's going on. Jerry, you have 3 keys for Michigan here in July. It's mid-July, the 12th. I have 3 keys for Michigan for the upcoming season. You want to go first with your keys, or you want me to put my keys out there?
I'll go right away. And Denny, the first thing I want to do in June and July is, first of all, I want to stay healthy. So my strength and conditioning coach, I don't want him getting somebody hurt in June or July because of a workout or whatever. I want our strength and conditioning to keep that in mind. And when I was out of football, I used to hear people talk about Mike Gittleson, and I totally believed in it, that the high intensity training that we did, it was great for our joints. It was less intrusive. We didn't have as many injuries, and people would, the naysayers would say, well, he had a lot of great talent, so all he had to do was just keep. No, that's bullcrap. Okay, we worked our butt off. I remember we didn't walk out of too many weight rooms. We kind of crawled out of them. Okay, because of that high intensity training. But I can also assure you that we weren't hurt going into the season either. And so our strength and conditioning coach had to make that decision on what is going to keep these kids healthy and get them, point number 2, in the best shape that they can possibly be in. And so that's 1 and 2 together. I want to stay healthy in June and July, and I want to get in the best possible condition that we can be in going into the season. The last thing I want to concentrate on in June and July is building that team chemistry, that team camaraderie, where our guys are working together. They're seeing each other work together. They're seeing how each other is working hard together. And when it comes to September, October, November, they're going to be a lot less likely to quit on their teammate that they saw working their butt off with them. Does that make sense to you, Denny? Okay. When I'm working with somebody, I know that's my partner. We're brothers. We are brothers. I'm protecting him like he's my brother, and I expect him to be protecting me. And that's what we got from our summer conditioning. We saw each other paying the price, doing the right things to get ready for the season. So those are my 3 things, Denny. Health, stay healthy, get in the best possible shape as you could possibly be in, and then build that team chemistry and camaraderie for the upcoming season.
Well, it's good to hear the things that, you're a fan. You can't really tell, heck, any of us, you could say they're going out there and working hard, and, but, this summer phase is pretty important here if you're going to build and win a championship. I'm with you on that. Jerry, I throw up some 3 keys for the season. 1, I think that Michigan would do well to stay near the top in the turnover margin department. U of M led the nation in turnover margin last year. They had the most defensive touchdowns in the country, but you win a championship, there's a lot of glowing stats that you can look at that you're number 1 in. This was one of them. They were number 1 in penalties committed in a game. They only had 3. That was number 1. But if you could force turnovers and limit your own, this would be a great one, I think, if you could say, hey, let's be near the top again in turnover margin. That's going to bode well for them.
If there are 2 underrated statistics out there, it's the turnover ratio. It's the turnover ratio and the penalties. When you look at successful teams, when you get more opportunities than the other team, your chances of winning greatly are enhanced. Not to mention, when you're not committing turnovers or penalties, again, your chances of winning the ball game are greatly enhanced. And those are 2 stats, Denny, I would totally agree with. Turnovers, penalties. Let's be disciplined. Those are, I used to call those my discipline stats, Denny. That's how I would know if my team was disciplined or not. Were we winning the turnover battle, and were we not penalizing ourselves? Were we stopping ourselves, or were we not getting in our way? So those are two stats. I used to call those my discipline stats.
Well, they have the playmakers. Will Johnson is, coming back. When you look at Jay Sean Barnum is on this team now. They've got some guys that are ball hawkers that can, not only just come up with the interception, but can also take it to the house. I don't want to say I'm worried about it, but when you have an entire new offensive line and they're working together, a new quarterback, and they're talking about different quarterbacks, all these things, committing and they do a lot of pre-snap movement. Number 2 in the country last year when you look at that metric.
Saw that.
If Michigan is able to, keep their penalties down, I don't have that here, but you just mentioned it. I'll get to good quarterback play. You almost say great quarterback play. You'd love to have great quarterback play, obviously, but good quarterback play. That's coming in, taking care of the ball, just, producing points per drive. As many of the different things people talk about, yards per attempt and yards per play. And I'm talking about turnover margin with a 1.27 in penalties. All of that. Harbaugh constantly last year kept deferring to, I want to know how many when a quarterback is out there, points per possession. That's what he wants. So if you're out there, you're getting the team in scoring position, whether you're kicking a field goal or scoring a touchdown. That's what he's all about. So whether it's 135 yards passing or 70 on the ground for Orgy or wherever it's going to be, it's good quarterback play, and that is taking care of the ball. Number 1, I think we all know there, Jerry.
I would agree with that, Denny, on many different facets there. Good quarterback play. We had great quarterback play last year. But the big thing he didn't do was put us in bad situations. Denny, I got a feeling we're not going to see as many 3rd and longs this year as we were last year, because I think last year we were more apt to take some chances on 1st and 2nd down with JJ, which led to some very unfavorable 3rd down situations, which we did very well. I mean, how many times did we see JJ hit a 3rd and 10 or 3rd and 12 or something like that and get us and keep drives alive? I think he did one against Penn State where he ran the ball there. So I'm with you on that. We need good quarterback play. Don't turn the ball over. Don't put us in bad situations. Get us in the best situation. Get us in the best play, and let your teammates help you out. I don't think we're going to be in long 3rd down long situations, because I think we're going to be running the ball a lot more on 1st and 2nd down. We'll be looking at 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s, in my opinion. That's why I said that.
My other key after the quarterback play, the 3rd one, is that the offensive line, they just need to be like they have been, which has been very good. I mean, they were exceptional last year. This 3-year run, they really the whole thing. And that's what Sherrone Moore, I mean, he's talked about it a little bit. Hey, how are you going to put your imprint? Sherrone Moore just wants to keep this thing going, how it's been going, how they've been playing, how they've been attacking all of this, everything that they've been doing. He can put his stamps at different spots, but, the offensive line, they have been physical and they have protected the quarterback. They just need to play like they have been. Now they're going to have 5 different guys. I know Miles Hinton did start 5 games, 1 over there at left tackle, 4 at right tackle to start the season. And Preeb has starts under his belt at Northwestern, but it's a new offensive line, but they need to come together quick and they need to play like they did last year. If they do that, you're talking about a team that can make the college football playoff.
This first game, I've seen some people say on here that Fresno is not going to be a walk in the park, and right. I would agree with that. And I think it's a good test right off the bat. We're playing a good football team. We're gonna know something about our team right away. And the one thing we definitely want to learn about our offensive line, our quarterbacks, is that they're not making mistakes. They're moving the ball down the course. They're pushing the ball forward. And young offensive lines tend to do a little illegal motions when when people are being put in motion,
Mm.
so to speak. So those are things we're going to look at right away, right off the bat. How disciplined is our team? Are we getting penalized against Fresno? That would not be a good thing. Did we turn the ball over? Or is our quarterback not putting us in the right position? Those are things we got to look at in that first game. Those are going to tell us what the season is going to be about. I think the system is very simple because we are running the ball and so much, and I think that helps with the discipline statistics, that turnover, the penalties, and those kinds of things. When your system is simple, it's easier to learn.
I love it. That's what people want to hear. Now, we said we'd ended up where we started, and that's with recruiting. And Mr. Moose, he is looking at things differently than me. He says Wright and Marsh are locks for Michigan. Those would be two outstanding wide receivers. If Michigan were able to get Wright and Marsh, they would be pretty good. Moose is also liking about Babaloa, the linebacker that we talked about, and he's throwing Taz in there too. Seems like he wants everyone. Now, if he's talking about Sanders, the offensive tackle, I don't think Michigan. He's even considering Michigan anymore. But maybe there's another Sanders he's talking about. So I don't know. Moose, it's great to get your opinion on all of that.
Yeah, that's why you gotta love the interaction with the audience, Denny. That's good stuff right there. Let's hope Moose is right. Let's hope Moose is Nostradamus and he's right on this one.
Yeah, Jerry. People continue to it's July. I don't know. I think it will catch wildfire on some days talking about the quarterbacks, and then people get tired of it, and then it bubbles back up. That's the way it's going to go when you have a quarterback that hasn't, had any real game time. And I do see even over on the Den, there's a respected poster. It's like it's going to be tough. It's pretty sure that it's going to be Jack Tuttle, in game one, and then you have your Orgy fans, and there's some Davis Warren faction out there. So. That comes with the territory, but I'm thinking Orgy myself, game one. I think the best case scenario for Michigan this year is Orgy to start and Orgy the rest of the way. That's how I look at it.
That's the way I'm seeing it, Denny. I think he's the guy. I think he's going to put us in a very, very favorable positions, and I think he's going to be a very effective quarterback. Very effective.
Yep, we'll see on that. Jerry, what about the Olympics? Is there anything that...
Oh, gosh, Denny, thank you. I almost forgot that. Appreciate it. Oh, this coming from a good friends of mine, Mark Champer, Jimmy Scarcelli, Scar, my man Scar, Mike Amin, Vinny DeFelice. 2024 Paris Olympians, Miles Amin, Mason Paris, Austin Gomez, Stephen Missick, and Adam, is it Cone or these five gentlemen are going to Paris for the Olympic trials in wrestling. And just more good news about Michigan and how we are out there and always involved, always in the arena.
Good stuff. We'll look for that in the Olympics. Moose was not talking about the offensive lineman. He was talking about a corner. Jaden Sanders, actually, should have known that. Good job, Moose. You do follow it really close. That is, and Scott's right with you there on the Olympians and being.
I thought it was 5. Scott, I have 5. I don't know. I had 5 on this poster I got here.
Well, there you go. We'll keep an eye on it. Jerry, any final thoughts?
Beautiful day in West Michigan. Beautiful sunny day in West Michigan. getting close to football season. Getting pretty good out here, Denny. Getting really good out here. Hail to the victors.
With you on that. Smash that like button for Jerry Diorio, Dennis Fithian. Thanks for watching. We'll see